Thank you. Welcome to the Tuesday, November 27th, 2018 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. I now call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded and aired live by LCTV, as well as being live streamed on longmeadow.org. It is a legal requirement for anyone else to disclose if they are recording this meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll turn it over to the clerk, who's going to address our correspondence for the evening.
The following correspondence will be recorded. An email from Tom Landers, Long Meadow High School principal, received on November 13th, 2018, regarding updates on Long Meadow High School athletics and the senior class play. Emailed letters received on November 13th, 2018, regarding the superintendent's contract from the following people: Susan Schoenberger, Jen Cosgrove, Melissa Tardif, Karen Rafferty, Mary Beth Davis. Email letters received on November 14th, 2018, regarding the superintendent's contract from the following people: Amy Tracy, Paula Leahy Welch, Beth Paulson, Ann Lombardi, the Rainers, Gianna Allentuck, Fran Kress, Cecilia Allentuck, Gianna and Lee Allentuck, Jean Marble, Lynn Pantusco-Hench and Jamie Hench, Christina Gagney. Emailed letters received on November 15th, 2018, regarding the school committee's decision to not renew the superintendent's contract from the following people: Lynn Hopkins, James DeBurn. Emailed letters received on November 19th, 2018, regarding the school committee's decision to not renew the superintendent's contract from the following people: Lynn Hopkins, Kevin Shea, William Knowlton, Sandra Boudreau. Emailed responses to the school committee chair's message sent on November 19th, 2018, from the following people: Shelley Bath Len and David Len, Richard Alford, Rick Rock, Mike Quinlan, Joe Yvonne, Terry Dittmar, Keith Beloff, Lauren Rollins, Ziv Korber, Jeff Aaron, Jen Fromm, Yedaya Jagadeesan, Fran Kress, Deanna Willis Moriarty, William Knowlton, Kate Haber, Chris Vasquez, Trish Tessier, Joseph Phillips, Michael Briggs, Dan Lenow, Jen Johns, Benito Rocco, Dorothy Martin, Dan Murphy, Brett Lukasik, Barry Kingston, Jen Cosgrove, Cynthia Calvanese, Suzanne Baker, and Jamie Walker. If there was anyone that was not read and was somehow missed, you can email the school committee or Diane, and we'll be going through them again as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this point in the evening, we will move into our visitor comments. I do have a sign-in sheet that was out earlier. For those new to the school committee visitor comment process, I'll just review what I did the last meeting. I will go in order of speaker, and you simply state your name and your address, and you'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and Ms. Georgantis will go ahead and set us up on a timer. I believe at the 2:50 mark, there'll be a warning, like a beep on the phone. No?
Beep. So I have no
You're
way
just
but
gonna run it for-
I have to interrupt people. And
Okay.
I didn't do that last time, I just raised my hand.
Okay, yeah, and I let people go over if I, just to be conscious of the 3-minute guideline is all I ask. And I do see that people have signs, and that's completely fine. I would just ask that any signs be held in a way that they don't obstruct the view of your neighbor. Everyone needs to be able to see and hear the meeting and the speakers at all times, so just to please be cognizant of that as we move forward. So I will start with Shannon Collins.
Good evening. My name is Shannon Collins. I live at 817 Converse Street. I'm the parent of 2 children who attend the Long Meadow Public Schools, and I'm here this evening to express my continued concern over the vote taken to non-renew our superintendent. While I appreciate the role that each of you has volunteered to fulfill in our community, and I understand the amount of time you dedicate to serving in this capacity, that takes you away from your families, I feel the vote taken by this committee at the last meeting is not supported by the community at large, which is a critical component of the role you are elected to fulfill in our community. I respectfully request that you reconsider your decision based on the evidence provided at the last meeting regarding the progress that has been made in our district under Dr. O'Shea's leadership. In the 2.5 years since Dr. O'Shea has served as our superintendent, he has established a climate that includes effective communication and collaboration with police, fire, and DPW, thus improving our safety and preparedness within our schools as well as our community. He has gained the trust and the support of our teachers and administrators, who are, in fact, closest to the work with our children. He has been present in our children's classrooms, at our teachers and administrators' professional development sessions. He has established committees to continue to work to improve and implement curriculum using research-based resources to support our students' changing needs, and by using data that he collects formally and informally to make informed decisions. He has demonstrated through the submission of balanced budgets that he is financially responsible and able to allocate funding that assists our educators to meet the needs of every child in our district. As an educator and a human being, I understand there is always room for growth in each of us, including Dr. O'Shea. However, if we truly have the best interests of our children in mind, we should continue to work to support our current superintendent. Our school district has a reputation of excellence throughout the state based on our students' achievement results. It is, in fact, the reason why many of us have chosen to live in Longmeadow. Dr. O'Shea has helped our teachers and our administrators to continue to provide a high-quality education for our students, enabling them to perform among the best in the state. A change in leadership at this time will not help us to continue to move forward for our children. If this is not something you are willing to consider, I would strongly suggest you consider resigning from your position on this committee based on the over 1,200 parents, voters, and taxpayers to date who have signed a petition asking for just that, your resignation, so we can elect members to our school committee who can represent the constituents they are elected to serve. I would also support exploring any and all options to legally resolve this issue if a reconsideration vote or resignations aren't submitted as a result of the overwhelming response of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen Falcone.
Jen Falcone, 50 Dennis Road. I wanted to just start with a quote that we're all spending a lot of time on social media these days, and a quote came across my feed today that I think speaks to both sides of this issue. Go and love someone exactly as they are, and then watch how quickly they transform into the greatest, truest version of themselves. When one feels seen and appreciated in their own essence, one is instantly empowered. I think there's a lot of people on both sides that feel like they're not being heard. But moving on to what I prepared. 2 weeks ago, our school committee voted not to renew the contract of Dr. O'Shea. Since that time, I have heard people talking and saying that the vote does not reflect what the people of Longmeadow want. Even if you believe it is an elected representative's job to always follow the wishes of the people, I believe it must be acknowledged that for the most part, the wishes they hear are those of residents who are unhappy. People who disagree show up. According to the Massachusetts State Secretary's website, there are over 12,000 registered voters in Longmeadow. Even if a large number of people appear to disagree with the school committee decision, that is only a tiny percentage of all voters in town. We have no idea what the other thousands of people would want. I will tell you that I have spoken to many residents who support the decision, but are afraid to speak up because they have seen school committee members get completely vilified. We cannot assume that because Dr. O'Shea's supporters are loud and organized that they represent the entire town. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees gives the legal power to hire, evaluate, and terminate superintendents to each district's elected school committee members. At this time, I believe there is nothing to be gained by continuing to try to undermine the authority of the school committee. There are still ongoing attempts, as we've just heard, to get the 4 members to resign their positions or change their votes. This town is deeply divided right now. It is time for our school committee to begin the process of hiring a superintendent that can help bring everyone together again. We have a long road ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Patrick Philbin, Matt Ayanku, and Jillian Croto. Do you guys want to come together? James Latender.
My name is Patrick Philbin, and I live at 104 Pinewood Hills.
My name is Matthew Yanku. I live on 70 Green Meadow Drive.
My name is James Latender. I live on 74 Warren Terrace.
I'm Jillian Croto, and I'm at 173 Maple Road.
We are all students of Longmeadow High School. We are here to represent the student body tonight, and we are here to show that we are concerned with the school committee's decision to not renew Dr. O'Shea's contract.
It is with great respect and admiration for the leader of our schools that we stand in front of you tonight. We want to address the school committee members. You guys don't get enough credit. You put in hours of work and take away from your personal time. We thank you tremendously for that. Every one of you were chosen and selected to represent us so we can work together to move the district forward.
After the recent decisions your community has made, we, the students of this great district, are concerned. We are not here to ask you to ignore your personal beliefs in any way. We are here to simply ask that you listen to us. This school district will not progress in the right direction by any means without Superintendent O'Shea in office. As members of the school committee, you see things about our superintendent we do not. However, you also do not see things we see. As students at the high school, we constantly feel Dr. O'Shea's presence. No matter when or where school events are taking place, our superintendent is always present. Recently, Dr. O'Shea ended our senior class play and traveled all the way up to Worcester to support our football team in a state semifinal game. And as a member of that team, I can assure you his presence was felt. Dr. O'Shea can constantly be seen at school events no matter As of late, the community and district has told you time and time again that Superintendent O'Shea's lead is what we need in our community. Last week, students at the high school physically walked out of class in support of Dr. O'Shea. However, you did not listen to us. Today, we ask when you will listen to us and what it will take for our voices to finally be heard. Now the community who voted you into office and you who represent feels silenced and let down. The decisions to not renew our superintendent's contract will have devastating effects on the students, faculty, and the community as a whole.
From the start, over 2.5 years ago, it was apparent that Dr. O'Shea was not one of your first choices. He was set up to fail before he even began the job. The work that Dr. O'Shea has done in this time and the connections he's formed are irreplaceable. How do we find someone capable of filling such big shoes? Who is going to want to lead a district knowing the faculty and students have no voice? Who is going to want to lead a district knowing the relationship between the school committee and the community is severed? Who is going to want to lead a district that has recently been all over the news because of its recent shambles? When it was reported, the personal vendettas of the school committee were the cause of it. Who would want to come into this? What kind of quality leader would come here? We are never going to find someone as diligent, practical, sincere, and respected the way Dr. O'Shea is. How often do you find a superintendent receiving as much support as Dr. O'Shea has received from this town? That should speak wonders. We'd like to ask you to do what is in the best interest of the students and faculty, because at the end of the day, we are the ones you devote your time to help. It is absolutely necessary that you listen to us, because we are the ones who are here working with him every single day. Please do not allow Dr. O'Shea to leave. Recovering from his loss will simply be impossible. Trust what the people you represent are telling you. Please do not silence the community anymore.
And to Dr. O'Shea, thank you. We appreciate all you have done here, and if they do not offer you a contract, I am certain you will find another superintendent job with ease. You are very skilled, compassionate, and intelligent. Any district would be lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to sit with Tom if that's all right.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Rosemont. My address is 26 Texel Drive. I'd like to begin by thanking the school committee for giving me this opportunity to speak. I As I said before, my name is Thomas Rosemont. I'm a senior here at Long Meadow High School. I've come to talk about the recent decision not to renew the contract of Superintendent O'Shea. This decision made countless Long Meadow residents frustrated, angry, and a little bit confused. We were in disbelief that Dr. O'Shea's contract was not renewed. I'd like to start by saying to those who voted against renewing Dr. O'Shea's contract, I encourage you to reconsider your vote. Do it for the students. I've seen Dr. O'Shea and the impacts he's had on the school and the community as a whole, and they've been outstanding. Do it for the teachers, and most importantly, do it for the people who voted you into office. Your job is to do what is best for the community, and I feel what is best for the community is renewing Dr. O'Shea's contract. Your claim stated that Dr. O'Shea did not improve based on your standards. I disagree, and I think the community as a whole disagrees. We think Dr. O'Shea has been nothing short of phenomenal. He is visible, engaged, thoughtful, fiscally responsible, and intelligent. The backlash received by the Long Meadow community should be an ample statement about how the community feels about our superintendent and your decision. Regardless of mistakes he may have made, we admire him and trust him, and Dr. O'Shea is the only superintendent we want to lead our district. I'd like to take this time to personally thank Dr. O'Shea for all he has done, and we hope to see him for another 3 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Shea?
Kevin Shea, 64 Warwick Street. I'm a parent of 2 high school students. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I listened to what everybody had to say, and I've reflected a lot on what happened here 2 weeks ago. I thought a lot about what everybody said. I've tried to read everything that I could. I really enjoyed the pieces that Gerald Duquette and Alex Grant wrote. I thought both of them were very thoughtful, and they helped me improve my thinking. I hope that everybody on the committee took some time to reflect. It's really hard to, in the moment, change your mind, decide how to do things. I think time is helpful as we reflect on what we heard last week. And when I think about what I heard, what I read, people I talked to, I think it's important to recognize that the people on the school committee, they're not saying things that are untrue to them. They're giving us their opinion. But I also think it's important to recognize that everybody else who spoke was giving their truth as well. And I think it's important to acknowledge, yeah, clearly there's issues going on between Marty and the school committee. There are communication issues. I don't think we can deny that. But I think it comes down to what are the other things? I mean, we heard a lot of talk about what are the jobs, responsibilities of the superintendent. And we heard about how many things have changed in the time he's been here. We heard from numerous teachers, administrators, students, and from parents. And I think the important thing from my perspective is to think about how you prioritize what sort of things are out there. It's clear that the people who voted no prioritized the issues of communication. I would urge you to prioritize the student's response, the parent response, the staff response, right? It's clear that everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I want a superintendent whose strengths are focusing on the kids, focusing on the staff, focusing on the administrators, communicating with parents. Those are the priorities I want. And I think Gerald Duquette offered a very good compromise when he said we should discuss a year renewal that enables us to continue to work through the process you've talked about. It enables us to go to the voters with an election, to let the voters decide how they want the school committee to go forward. And to me, that seemed like a very reasonable solution. I think that's a win-win, and I hope that the committee discusses that, and I hope they come to the decision that that is a good compromise motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize, I can't read the last name, but it's a Donald, last name begins with G. Donald G. Maybe Goldberg? Sir, I'm sorry if I didn't have your full name.
That's right. My name is Donald Gaffney, and I live at 161 Wolf Swamp Road. And I have 2 grandchildren in the high school who I love dearly. So my question that comes to mind is, where does over $100,000 come from for the legal fees and for the search fees? And will these monies detract from my grandchildren's education? And is anyone here prepared to answer that?
I don't believe we're prepared to answer that this evening because we haven't advanced in the process
Well, I
at
believe
that
it-
point. But certainly, the public will be made aware of any steps the school committee takes. I assure you of that.
Certainly, it must be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Jen Cosgrove. Jen?
So in observing the time limit, I was hoping to share a note from Liz Bone, who can't be here, cover that, and then just offer a comment if I could. These are Liz's comments. She said, "As you know, I'm truly disappointed in your vote 2 weeks ago. When I was on the school committee, we also had to make difficult decisions and face lots of criticism. For example, free kindergarten, busing, hiring the superintendent. Besides considering your own research and community input, we also wanted to listen to the most important stakeholders, the LPS staff. This is where you have failed. The teachers and students will have the biggest negative impact from your decision, and not once did you take any responsibility for the breakdown of the communication. It's a two-way street. Did you ever reach out to the staff and take their experience into account? The town officials? Did you weigh the consequences of your vote? Financial? Creating a deep distrust between you and the staff? Maybe your relationship between yourselves as a school committee and the superintendent is damaged and needs a lot of work. But the working relationship between the superintendent, the staff, students, and community was working great, and now you have taken that away. Your own efforts to hire a mentor were also flawed. Dr. O'Shea's mentor was less experienced than he was. She was only a superintendent for 2 years. Who picked her? What was the process? Where are her reports? I urge you to reconsider your decision and this time take into account other perspectives that work day to day with Dr. O'Shea and see Dr. O'Shea as a leader, a collaborator, and progressive, experienced superintendent." And then I wanted to add, elaborate on a letter that I sent you all after the vote, and sort of building on Mr. Shea's comments as well, asking you to explore other steps for moving forward. How we make a decision is just as important as the decision itself, and this decision was clearly fraught. We heard in the last meeting about different perspectives on the events leading up to and the discussion at the November 6th evaluation subcommittee meeting. And one is, I hope that the minutes from that meeting will become official because I think it's an important part of the record. But it also indicated just how much tension and conflict and it was beyond tense. And that obviously preceded the vote that you all took last week, and that itself was taken at was obviously a very chaotic or tense moment at the end there. But when the motion did come up to even consider a 1-year contract extension, we didn't even pause to discuss the motion. We didn't even pause to say, maybe we need to take a break on the vote in general. You're not locked into a decision. Please reconsider the vote.
Jill Goldstein.
She may be in the back. Overflow. Would you want me to call for? Is it Jill Goldstein?
It's Jill Goldstein.
She thought she was signing in.
Oh, not speaking. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you all for your comments.
Is there any others out there?
Anybody that we overlooked on a sign-in sheet?
Thank you. Good. We're all set.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming and taking the time. We will move on our business this evening to our school committee announcements and recognitions. Seeing none, we can move into our business with guests. And at this time, I will welcome the principals.
I do have a comment, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Armand.
Just from a school committee perspective, I just want to again thank everybody for coming out. We had 350 people here last week. I counted over 86 people, more coming in at the end. This is truly a demonstration of the political action at the local level. This is why we have town meetings, democracy in its truest form. I can tell you, your thoughts, your concerns are not going unheard by me, and I know by others. I will say that there was a correspondence that came out on behalf of the school committee. I did ask that we deliberate that in open session before being sent out. The letter said that we were looking forward to everybody's input going forward. And I can't tell you the number of people who have come up to me after me asking me if we're not going to listen to the 350 people beforehand, the voices of the 86 people here tonight, that did nothing but put salt in the wound of an open sore to the community. And I apologize that came out of there on my behalf, but I understand the chair has discretion to send correspondence out. I've been a chair, I know what it's like, and it is the right of the chair to do so. But I did want to tell you that I acknowledge those feelings of people coming to me, giving me that input, and I also acknowledge your ability to take full advantage of what our democracy has to offer you in order to find whatever solution is within the realm of good taste. I will also say, I said this the first day, children are off limits. I have heard that comments have been made to fellow school committees' children, ignoring them, not associating with them at lunch. That should end immediately. Like, children are off limits now, in the future, in the past, and I will never stand by and see that happen to anybody's children. As for school committee members, we are public officials. This is what we signed up for. We are in the spotlight, and case law dictates that we are held to a higher standard by the community. And again, I appreciate the community's ability and what seems like a duty for them to respond. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Armand. At this time, we'll move on to our school improvement plans, and we will welcome our principals from our 6 schools to present and come to the table tonight and review the plans with us, and Dr. O'Shea will go ahead and give a brief introduction. Do we need the whiteboard before?
All right, so thank you. Thanks to our principals for coming out. They've been working hard with their staff and their school councils to develop school improvement plans, and I want to just provide a context for the development of the school improvement plans, and then the principals will speak by grade levels about some of the components of their various school improvement plans. These are some images that are perhaps familiar to the committee at this point. When I think about district growth and improvement, one of the things that I have tried to introduce and ask the administrators to embrace is this notion of continuous improvement. It was something that, frankly, I was schooled in long ago as an assistant principal at Long Meadow High under the tutelage of Dr. Tom McGarry, the Plan, Do, Study, Act model of continuous improvement. And I think the plans that have been developed by our school councils are a tremendous reflection of that model for district growth and improvement. So I'll come back to that shortly. The principals tire of seeing my arrows. I think this is an image that we often look at as a way to represent how there are a lot of individual efforts at the classroom, school level that we are trying to harness and point in a single direction. And so that notion of systemic alignment and getting all our arrows pointed in the same direction, I think, is a powerful one for us. And then finally, the concept of synergy, that as improvement and growth is made one classroom, it inspires, it drives change and growth and improvement in other classrooms. And that similarly, that happens at the school level as well. So as growth and improvement and change and happens at the elementary level, it in turn drives growth and improvement and change at the middle level. So we're really proud, I think, as an administrative team to bring those gears together so that our energy is synergistic and that we are helping each other in our efforts to grow and improve as, at the classroom, school, and the district level. So the school improvement planning cycle is something that I hope the committee is familiar with, and this is a sort of a continuous loop that we're on. Our school improvement plans are single-year plans, but very often, and for very understandable reasons, you'll see that goals sometimes carry over from year to year to year. And so tonight we are at the stage of the approval of the new school improvement plans. And so the school improvement plans are required by statute, and the elements of school improvement plans are regulated by the Department of Education, and we also have some local policy on school councils and school improvement plans as well. So that school improvement planning cycle really runs from December 1st of one academic year through November 30th of the following year. The reason it sort of is demarked by that November 30th deadline is that the principals need the time to gather their school councils at the beginning of the year, review last year's accomplishments, and build a plan for improvement in the coming cycle. So with our hope is that we present to you school improvement plans that are robust and actionable and measurable. The specific plans are the individual plans. The detailed plans were in your packet, and so hopefully you've had an opportunity to review those. Tonight, we're really just trying to provide an overview to the committee and to the community at large. So we'll highlight some of the more significant elements of the various school improvement plans. Quick note on school councils. School councils are, again, required by statute. They are a representative school-based committee composed of parents, teachers, community members. I counted before the meeting that we had something like, I think it was 22 parents that were involved in this, dozens of teachers, and at the middle school level and the high school level, the principals are great about involving the student bodies in the school improvement planning process as well. So it is there's probably over close to 60 individuals across the community that have collaboratively been involved in the development of the school improvement plans that you will hear about tonight. So tonight's presentation, we're going to kick off with some reflections from the principals on last year's plans. They'll highlight some of the places where they've seen some growth, where we're getting some traction. but they'll also note some of the areas where we feel like there's room for additional growth. And then secondly, we'll just provide, again, a sort of a strategic overview of the 18-19 plans, the plans that are driving our work this year. And what's really important to me is that the committee sees and the community sees a linkage between the individual school improvement plans and the district goals that we've identified for ourselves, which are also informed by the goals that the school committee has developed in recent years as well. So that notion of systemic alignment is very important to me personally, and I think it drives a lot of the work at the school and classroom level as well. So just to reorient the committee and the community to our district improvement goals, social emotional learning has obviously been an important component of our work in recent years. Differentiation, the idea that we try to meet learners where they are and try to address their needs in terms of the content that we use in our classrooms, in terms of the methodology, the pace, the approaches to assessment. So many different ways that we can differentiate instruction to meet learners where they are. And then finally, the notion of curriculum alignment, working hard to ensure that our curriculum is aligned across grade levels vertically, pre-K through 12, and then horizontally across grades and classrooms and disciplines. This is ongoing work. It's one of these destinations that maybe you never get to. Just today, Assistant Superintendent Bertrand and I had a meeting of our K-8 music educators, and it was really informative to us to kind of get a sense of what the student experience is in our music classrooms from pre-K right up through 8th grade. So that is a regular component, a regular part of our ongoing work, and you'll see that reflected in what the principals have provided to you in their packets, but also in their presentation tonight. So that's the verbiage that's associated with our district improvement goals. Again, hopefully they are familiar to the committee and becoming increasingly familiar to the community. So let's start, if we could, on reflections from last year, 2017, 2018, and I've just asked the principals just to give us a quick sort of snapshot of what was accomplished in 2017, 2018 relative to their school improvement plans. We'll do that before we move into this year's plans. So I'm not sure if there's a batting order or...
I'll start.
All right, thank you. Amy Bostian, principal at Blueberry Hill, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you to the school committee. Thank you, Dr. O'Shea. I'm glad people are staying for a school improvement plan because it's one of the most important things that we do as a school council and as a learning community. I want to thank my current school council. I do want to read their names because I think it's really important. Jean Ahn, Amy Appel, Susan Bell, Jennifer DePonde, Heather Goldstein, Corinne Lieberman, Beth Renault, and Cindy Schultz. Those are the dedicated teachers, community members, and parents who form this really wonderful committee. So last year was my first year as principal of Blueberry Hill, so the first few months were simply trying to understand things like the car line, which is ongoing, so we'll hopefully get there at some point. To the families that are here, we continue to work on it, so we welcome your feedback. There was a lot of time spent building relationships with families, with the students, with the staff, with this administration team. I was incredibly welcomed, so I do want to publicly thank everyone in town and on this fantastic team for bringing me right in and taking me under their wing. Especially grateful to Donna and Beth for all their work. Collegiality is really important to all of us. So the three goals, again, as Dr. O'Shea already talked about, our commitment to social emotional learning. We established a deeper commitment to aligning our academic work with social emotional learning and making those two more of a commitment to one another versus being taught separately. Implementing our second step program with a little bit more fidelity in grades 2 to 5. So again, that was last year. It's also something that we're committed to again this year, but now on a K to 5 level. The second thing that we were most proud of with regard to our second goal related to differentiation, bringing our coaches and specialists into the classroom on a more regular basis, and allowing the teachers with our coaches, with our specialists, to develop literature that spanned a lot of different ability levels and also crossed content areas, as well as bringing in social emotional learning themes. So bringing that together with our embedded professional development commitment. The last thing I want to talk about, because Marty said, let's keep this short. So our commitment to alignment has to do, what we're most proud of has to do with the homework guiding principles and really engaging in some thoughtful conversations with kids, with families, with our teachers, and making sure that our practices are committed to what we already established as best practices for kids beyond the classroom. Most proud of our commitment to literacy through our library, which there are a lot of things. Am I on a timer? I heard it. All right. Did Diane raise her hand? All right. Okay. The Blueberry Bookshelf was established. It's a monthly newsletter that is put out by our librarian that covers different content areas, ways to stay committed to reading. It was a nice outreach that we started for our families and for our kids and our teachers too. So those are the three things that we were most proud of. You probably noticed they're also mentioned in the school improvement plan for this year because we want to deepen our commitment, our fidelity. We had a great first year. My first year, I think. So thank you. All right.
Next.
Thank you. My school council members are Rachel Axman, Michael Baresi, Christopher Morgan, Gina Panchusco, Sarah Smith, Amanda Ericolo, Juliet Keenan, Vanessa Vigna, and Karen Rafferty. And we have a lot to celebrate from last year and some areas that we're looking to improve. We lead, but then I get out of the way and my teachers do all the hard work. So I'm glad that a lot of them are here this evening so that they can listen to me brag about them and share a lot of the things that they accomplished in the past year. So our first goal, we focused on the social emotional learning as well, and a lot of that focus was on our Peace Builders program. We had a teacher who developed a student-led team, and what came out of the student-led team was a family night where almost our entire staff was involved in one way or another with the planning of it. The teachers have also done some really hard work with monthly school-wide activities to make sure that we're all on the same page each month and we're aligned to the practices of Peace Builders. Our second goal, which is about differentiation, the teachers continue to grow their knowledge and implementation of a balanced literacy program. The embedded PD led by our literacy coach was quite successful. We used a lesson study format. And there was also an enhanced use of text sets to promote just a higher level of thinking for our students through writing. Also, our math workshop model continues to grow, and that promotes a lot of differentiation as well in math. We are looking to improve our ability to optimize the win block, and you'll see that in our school improvement plan for next year. We want to increase those opportunities for students who have reached mastery. So that's an area we know we still need to grow. The third area, providing consistent learning experiences across grade levels. Again, I'll just echo what Amy said about the homework guiding principles. We really brought reading to the forefront at the school. We had the Year of the Reader. There was lots of school-wide happenings that promoted reading. We're proud of our bedtime stories that the teachers did for the community. We had little book fairies dropping books around the school. It was just a lot of real book swaps. It was a lot of fun ways to really emphasize reading for our students. An area that we are going to continue to work on is to improve the transition from elementary to middle school. It was in our school improvement goal, but we feel very strongly that we have to be more intentional in this particular area. So you'll see that in our plan for next year. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I will also share the members of my school council. Several teachers are here this evening as well. Rebecca Powell, Christina Gagney, Katie LeMay, Kelly Ross, Jennifer Hafey, Yeseli Mascaro, Summer Williams, and Kristen Wing. Last year was my second year at Wolf Swamp, so it felt like the first year that I actually was able to have some knowledge in developing the school improvement plan. The year previous, as Amy shared, I was developing it with very little knowledge about my community. So I'm very pleased that we did meet 12 of the 13 goals last year in our school improvement plan. The one that we didn't, we were just shy, just missed it. So I was very pleased with everything that we were able to work towards last year and complete. Particularly excited and happy to celebrate our Wolfpack gatherings. We made a commitment to creating a comfortable space for students. This happens once a month, and we did maintain that with very engaging and active activities in each one that allowed the children to participate in a community service component as well. With regards to the differentiation, we have always had a very strong three-tier response to intervention program in my time at Wolf Swamp. But last year, what our team developed was a data warehouse so that all members of a student's team are able to access their action plan that is very detailed and highlights the goals that the children are working on, when that goal should be met, and who is monitoring the student's progress, so that there's always ability to go back and reflect and make sure that we are moving our students forward. And with regards to alignment, to follow up with what Donna just spoke about, our literacy coaches, the embedded PD that we worked on last year through the alignment of the units of study, I think we did a very good job of allowing our teachers flexibility in creating a lesson study that worked for them. So they were able to work with the literacy coaches, get coverage for their classrooms so that they could watch and observe the modeling, but not always be taken out of their classroom for that professional development. So we made a really committed focus on making sure that their voices were heard and being with their students as much as possible. And we are going to continue that model again this year with a focus on writing about reading.
Thank you.
My turn. Hello. So some of our accomplishments from this past year was the consistent implementation of tiered literacy and math intervention programs. And we held monthly meetings with the whole team, and I guess just like Beth was saying, and we constantly monitor progress with the students. And currently we have 32 students in the literacy lab and 45 students in math lab. Our social emotional learning, we created a website at the beginning of last year, and it totally follows CASEL. It's under the 5 competencies, so you can go under the website. We have it for each grade level, and we have each of the competencies and activities for each grade level under them. And that's what we used to run our advisories last year, which was pretty great. And then I sent out messengers every time we changed the competency to sort of, I know some of you guys got those emails, so it sort of shared out what we're doing at school to continue the work at home, as well as some resources and an article that would sort of help with the work that we were doing so that parents could understand what we were doing in advisory and then be able to continue that work at home. We aligned and selected a new science curriculum this past year for grades 6 through 8 at both Williams and Glenbrook. And we successfully run monthly maker challenges with a high participation at all of them. We average about 70, 75 kids across grades. Sometimes it's more, but that's about what we average, and it's an after-school thing that we do once a month, and it's usually a theme with whatever's going on that month, and the kids really look forward to it, and it's just an awesome opportunity for them. Opportunities for growth, I know that Donna touched on this, is the vertical work with elementary. We acknowledge the fact that our schedules didn't really work this year, and we put some effort into creating time that's thoughtful and organized for us to spend that time this year working on that. And now, I know we just talked about the advisory piece, but now our focus this year is to infuse CASEL language and work more school-wide, which I know you guys all heard during our SEL presentation. So that's something we really want to focus on in the classrooms, during clubs, lunch, et cetera, during the maker challenges, where teachers are now infusing those SEL standards into their lessons along with their regular objectives and just looking beyond advisory. And then in addition to that is also the assessing the social emotional learning. We're really looking towards how we can do that. There's student reflections, there's I know there's some other stuff that's coming out through CASEL for the assessment tool, but we're going to look at it through the YRBS data and stuff like that. So that's the kind of stuff that we would like to work on this year.
Thank you. So is Nicole Allen Glenbrook.
Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
God, sorry. And I forgot my members. Sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry, guys. Hold on, please. Please, let me have a moment. Our parents are Angela Wing, Christine Henley, Summer Williams, Sandrine Perard. Our community member is Melinda Cropsey. Our students are Nathaniel Morin and Nina Hutchins, and our teachers are John Wills, Jen Grader, and Jocelyn Young, and I want to thank them for their work on this as well.
Thank you. Neil Guile.
No, man.
That was your turn.
Let me start by thanking the school council. The members are Jen Cosgrove, Emily Kasparowski, Anya Griffith, Amy Davis. Those are the parents. Students are Lily Mae Turgeon, Hannah Rosemont. Teachers are Tracy Bradshaw, William Sullivan, and Christine King. Truly appreciate the work that they do, the insight that they bring to every meeting. Certainly a nice collection of expertise and thoughts about school improvement. So thank you so much for their role in this. I would just recognize that last year's improvement plan served as a nice springboard to this year's work, having arrived in December. I felt like I was playing catch up a lot of the time. That said, the work that was initiated last year has truly taken root, and we're seeing some wonderful progress in that regard. Accomplishments. Last year we rolled out CASTLE and the 5 competencies. Teachers over the summertime created a purposeful planning committee, which entailed teacher-generated lessons focused on each competency. They also created a website to support the teachers and to enhance the experience. As Principal Allen recognized, we had gone through the adoption process of new science curriculum. Opportunities for growth. We recognize that the vertical alignment is an area that we need to focus on from the elementary to middle, and also middle to high school. We continue to look for meaningful SEL lessons for the advisories, and looking for opportunities to infuse the social emotional learning into the day-to-day practices and in the classroom. And lastly, obviously trying to measure the effectiveness of the implementation and the effectiveness of social emotional learning.
Thank you. Tom Landers, Long Meadow High.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge Anya Griffith, Sheila Hoffman, Michelle McGrath, Sarah Moore, and parents on our council, Linda McCormick, our community representative, Mary McDonald, Eliza Falk, Ella Matthews, and Zachary Landon, our student representatives, and our teacher representatives, Hillary Godin, Susan Baker, and Aaron Keller. It was a good year at Long Meadow High School. It was a busy year. We got a lot of things accomplished. We still have room to grow. I would highlight a great leap forward that we took in SEL last year. We've been working on SEL, but I think every year it evolves. What does that mean? How can you help students? How do you help students be the most resilient? Stress is a reality. Anxiety is a reality. We hear a lot about that. We prepare the student for the bumpy road. We don't have them avoid that bumpy road. So I think a couple of things within that was the purposefulness of the curriculum within wellness, the expansion and the continued evolving of our PE and health department into our wellness department. I would point to the PD that we planned around, listening to LHS student voices. What does it mean to walk through the halls and experience learning in the classrooms of Long Meadow High School? That's all things that we're proud of and that were meaningful to us as faculty and staff members last year. I would also point out the PD that we engaged in terms of what good teaching looks like: pacing, rigor, differentiation, student-centered learning, authentic assessments, what effective co-teaching looks like, et cetera. That's something that's ongoing. It's the heart of what we do, and we certainly engaged in that in a meaningful way last year. I would add one more thing to SEL. With the help of the school committee last year, we increased our social workers from 1.4 to 2.0. And what that allowed us to do for the first time ever was to be proactive and not just reactive, to play offense, not just defense, in terms of helping kids. So how that looks at Long Meadow High School, and last year was the first time we rolled that out, and we're trying to get better at that this year, is to have one of our licensed social workers, who we happen to be lucky is also a certified yoga instructor, Ali Schlachter, to go into, she began for the first time to go into 9th grade PE classes last year and to model for them and to engage with them relaxation and mindfulness, and that's great stuff for kids. Our 9th graders have a half a year of health and then a half year of PE, and she went into every single PE classroom. And room to grow, we certainly have room to grow. One of the things that we were disappointed with was we have not had a consistent librarian at Long Meadow High School until September. So one of our goals that the committee, the council felt strongly about last year was to really be purposeful. You always teach about vetting of information, navigating reliable versus non-reliable sources, bias recognition, plagiarism, citation, et cetera, all within the guise of research. That happens in good high schools every year. But and I want to give credit to the social studies department and the English department because they do that work consistently. But the council last year really felt in a nonpartisan way, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you fall on, we had to be very purposeful about that. So we did that, but weren't able to really bring the librarian in. We didn't have a librarian. We had a long-term sub who did a great job and some people who filled in. So that's an area of growth that we want to work her in. Carrie Kennedy, licensed librarian, is going to play a very important role in that effort this year. Overall, it was a good year, and we're always looking to get better.
Thank you. And I think what struck me as I heard the principal's reflections on 17-18 is just the incredible talent of so many of our educators and how they are purposefully directed towards some common school-based goals, and a credit to the administrators for building that level of consensus with their staff so that everybody is, again, pointed in the same direction. So thank you. And so now, as we transition from 17-18 to, this is now our opportunity to highlight the plans for 18-19. And so I've asked the principals to think about their objectives in relation to our district improvement goals. So that first district improvement goal relating to social emotional learning, and impossible to gather and collect all the objectives that are in the plans in front of you, but we highlighted a couple just for your consideration and for discussion tonight. So elementary SIP objectives related to SEL. Take it away.
So, as Dr. O'Shea stated, there's consistency across all of the schools. What we're going to highlight for you tonight with regard at the elementary level to our school improvement plan for Goal 1, our commitment to social emotional learning, happens to focus on family engagement and feedback, getting feedback on SEL practices, and also our staff development. Social emotional learning is the fabric of everything that we do, certainly in education. So again, to thank all of the people who come to work every day on behalf of just the profession itself and our children, so the teachers and the paraprofessionals, our special educators, specialists, even substitute teachers, every person plays a pivotal role in our commitment to social emotional learning. So our action steps include being committed to designing and administering surveys to all of our stakeholders to assess the efficacy of our programming. And as we've stated before, our commitment to CASEL as being the foundation for the work that we do, and then the various programming that we do have at each of our elementary schools. So this also includes a climate survey of our families, making a commitment to doing that, looking at the feedback, comparing it to some of the surveys that we have done in the past. Where have we grown, where are we falling up short, and then moving forward with that. And again, reviewing it against our vocal data. So all of those data points, looking at them with a little bit more fidelity, hopefully administering that survey twice throughout this year. our commitment to staff development, so furthering our professional development both at the district level and also at our building levels. We will be spending a lot of time looking at educational inclusive practices, which includes being culturally responsive. We have a commitment already to Ariel Nelson. She came to our admin retreat in August, talked to us about culturally responsive practices within our learning communities. We have continued PGC courses that our staff is engaged in throughout the district. We're also looking at increasing our building-based professional development and establishing social-emotional learning committees. So that will be established, or is now established, at each of the 3 elementary schools, and working also closely with our school adjustment counselors. So as Marty said, also, plan, do, study, act. School improvement plans are written, but we also understand that we work with humans and we need to make sure that we respond to their needs in the moment and not just at the end of a school year. So we do appreciate some flexibility within our plans, and in fact working together to move all the kids forward and sending them up to the middle school.
Good transition. So at the oh, I'm not advancing here. At the middle level, some of our objectives relating to social emotional learning.
Okay, so when we spoke about our opportunities for growth, we did discuss how we want to go beyond advisory and really start making it school-wide. So that's where we come in for this year in our plans. We talked about increased participation in clubs, but we also always encourage students to come to us with clubs of interest. And really, I know for us, just over the past month, yoga, baking, knitting, and TED Talks came to us from kids initiating it and working with staff to volunteer to help run those clubs. So that in itself is pretty awesome. We talked about the measuring of the SEL growth of the CASEL competencies and to work towards that, and with using self-reflections, instructional interaction surveys for staff, and using the indicators and just more language where the kids, it's more like kid-friendly language so that they understand what they're doing in the classroom related to social-emotional learning. Our faculty meetings are more focused now on things that are SEL focused, like service learning. We have one coming up that's mental health in teens that I know we discussed before, we talked about yardsticks, the development at each grade level. So we're really working with the staff at the faculty meetings to provide more opportunities to better support the kids in this area. Other things that we are doing is focusing a lot on trying to utilize team time appropriately so that they are spending 1 out of the 6 days in the rotation to work on activities and lessons. And we know when those are happening at team times. They put it in a calendar for us so that we're aware and we can attend. We have social emotional learning committees that are started this year at our schools to provide even more opportunity for staff to get together and discuss the students and how to move forward in that direction. And then the messengers that I was talking about that were sent out last year, and now we're kind of putting that on and having the advisors send out messengers to the families. Our hope this year is monthly so that they can get those kind of messages across to the families about what they're focusing on in their advisory so they can continue that work at home as well.
Thank you much. At the high school, some of the objectives relating to social emotional learning.
At the high school, we continue to work on and trying to make new inroads in terms of working with students in our wellness program, working with students in workshops to help them problem solve, decision-making, strategies for success, having them visualize situations that they're going to be confronted with, have them come up with specific strategies, have them work in wellness classes about through situational realities that they're going to find themselves in whether they are in at a social event, whether they're in a locker room, whether in the hallway, whether they're in a cafeteria, whether they're at a anywhere, to be confident and to navigate successfully through all the things that have to be navigated through in terms of adolescence and the challenges that come with. Targeted supports for struggling students. I mentioned that we have the second social worker. They are busy. It's great that we have that. But our child study team weekly identifies students who are struggling academically, socially, emotionally. We have a small amount of students who are struggling with some serious mental health issues. We are trying to do everything we can for them, and we're also trying to make sure that for the majority of students who are dealing with the normal struggles of adolescence, we're helping them, we're supporting them through both curriculum and through information, whether it be our social norming campaign, whether it be our workshops that you see more detailed in the plan. And I would say that the attention to transition and placement, although that might seem like an academic goal, it spills over into the social emotional. We are trying to be very, very purposeful, very honest, very direct about having students choose what path is best for them, to individualize what course selection is best for them, what level. You know that there are numerous levels at the high school that students can choose from. What is a balance for every student? There are some students who can take 5 honors courses, 5 AP courses. There are others who cannot do that. So we're being very purposeful and structured in having face-to-face dialogues with guidance counselors. Also increase the number of days from 1 to 2 for feedback for the academic teacher who is meeting with all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders in the spring prior to scheduling and choosing their classes. And also the transition that we've talked about, that we've been engaging with the middle school. We have seen success, but we need to do more work in terms of making sure that high school teachers in 9th grade and middle school teachers in 8th grade are on the same page in terms of what is expected. What is expected of students in a specific leveled class on week 1, month 1, year 1. For example, social studies teachers, and I'll use them as one example, but every academic department in some way, shape, or form are working together. Guidance counselors at the middle school and social studies teachers at the middle school have examples of work that students have done from past years. Week 1, month 1, year 1. They have examples of assessments and assignments that they're going to look with. More than ever, 8th grade teachers and 9th grade teachers are on the same page. And that helps both academically, but certainly socially, emotionally. When a student's schedule is intact through September and October and November, a 9th grader, that is good for their social emotional learning. When they don't have to say, I made a wrong choice, I'm finding myself struggling in mid to late October. If they have to move a science class, very often that necessitates moving another class. And we sought to minimize that, and the numbers have shown that we've made progress in that, and we have to still keep working. We've been working with the middle schools for a few years now. It's grown in scope, and I think it's also grown in depth. I think we started off with some polite conversations. I think people were treading lightly. I think we were getting to know each other, and now we're getting into the heart of the matter, and that's what helps kids.
Thank you, Tom. Just to echo that, the idea of work samples and having teachers collaboratively look at work samples across grade levels to understand what the expectations are at various grade levels is such a powerful way, and I think an interesting way for teachers to engage in that transitional work that we're talking about. So thank you for that, Tom. The second goal relates to differentiation of curriculum and instruction. So we pulled out a few of the elementary objectives in relation to this DIP goal. Who wants to take it?
Yep, I'll talk about this. So now that we've had the workshop model in place for Readers and Writers Workshop, our work now is to refine it and to enhance the workshop model. There's going to be a very specific focus this year on constructive responses. We feel that the writing that our students do is changing, it's evolving. So our literacy coaches have developed a phenomenal plan for our teachers. There'll be more embedded PD to help them with the constructive responses, and that's not separate from reading because they're also going to be delving much deeper into more complex texts. And that aligns very nicely with the writing component. And the other piece is the WIN block. As I mentioned before, I'll just circle right back to it. We're going to continue at all 3 schools to enhance that WIN block, providing as many opportunities as we can for students who have met proficiency, and our RTI teams do a lot of that important work through the analysis that when the teams get together and the teachers are sharing and they're building solutions to make sure that we're meeting all the students' needs. So again, that aligns with the intervention block.
Thank you. I like that Donna talked about embedded professional development. Sometimes we fall into the trap of thinking about professional development as happening on the 5 PD days that we have built into the calendar, but I credit our principals for really approaching professional development on an ongoing basis and ensuring that there is embedded work, because I think there's certainly an interest among teachers to find time to collaborate and to improve their practice on a day-to-day basis. And as Donna mentioned, the literacy coaches have been really critical at the elementary level in terms of providing that embedded PD. So,
Can I just add one thing?
Sure,
What
yeah.
happened this past year for our new teachers, we're bringing a lot of new teachers on board, and for a very long time, we talked about doing some summer, like a literacy institute, and it happened this year. And I think that made a huge difference where the new teachers could hit the ground running. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
Central
that-
Office made that happen, and,
Yeah.
and I think they found it very, very helpful.
yeah, there was a lot of planning that went into that literacy
Incredible amount of
institute.
planning.
How many teachers? We had a couple dozen teachers, I think, that were involved in that.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was-
they came. I mean,
Yeah.
the new teachers came
Yeah.
and they had the opportunity to see what the workshop model looks like
Yeah.
in Long Meadow. And sometimes they're starting and there's so many things that a new teacher has to get in place, learning the culture of a school and just lots of other things happening. And they were able to understand that model, and it made a big difference.
Particularly a busy hiring year, the summer for center school this past
Yes,
year.
it
yeah.
was.
At the middle school level, some of the objectives relating to differentiation of curriculum and instruction. Dr. Gao.
Yes, we wanted to highlight 3 action steps that will address this goal. The first one was the creation of the literacy working group, which is specifically looking at the alignment of practices at the middle level. We also wanted to analyze and have conversation about what are we doing to address the diverse needs of our learners. Second, we wanted to continue to utilize and look at the ways in which we use technology to enhance the learning environment. A great example of this is the upcoming Hour of Code, which kicks off at the end of this week, and all next week students will be engaged in the coding experience. And then lastly, the idea of professional development and sharing of best practices associated with inclusion and differentiation in the co-teaching realm.
I want to just underscore what Dr. Gao mentioned about the Hour of Code. So on Friday, I think it is, this coming Friday, the middle school tech teachers will be kicking off the Hour of Code. And the cool thing is the high school robotics students and the students from the high school comp sci classes are coming down to the middle school to work with the middle school kids. So, and that stuff happens when there's great relationships among our teachers and great relationships among our administrators, so that we're not all working in silos. And it's going to be such a powerful day, I think. And because we've got a lot of middle school students who are really jazzed up about coding and chomping at the bit to learn everything they possibly can in computer science. And so I'm excited to see how that Hour of Code looks on Friday. So thank you guys for organizing that. Thanks to our technology and computer science teachers for organizing that as well. Next, at the high school level, some of the objectives relating to differentiation, and just I say that we'll just give you a little dipstick version of the NEASC work that is in front of the high school, because at some point we'd like to have the high school NEASC team report to the school committee on what the reaccreditation process looks like. It's exciting. I'm excited for the work. I'm excited for the outcome. But Tom, differentiation.
So at LHS, we started at the very end of last year in order for preparation for the first few days of school this year by inventorying, every teacher engaging in inventorying of examples of differentiation within their classes. And we use that to start a conversation through the Castle model in the first few days of this year, and to talk about and look at examples and build on and steal good ideas from each other regarding personal connection to learning, connections to real life, authentic examples of how our classes relate to students' lives now and in the future. More examples of interdisciplinary work and having teachers making purposeful connections between academic departments. So that is going on. We have PD plan that we've already engaged in. We have PD plan that is coming up right after the new year. We also saw Rick Wormelli. Rick Wormelli challenged us to go beyond what we were already doing. And in regard to the vision of the graduate, you have some information in front of you. What I would say is we are every high school who's going through accreditation in New England is being challenged to identify and prioritize a certain amount of hard skills and competencies that every single student graduating from a K-12 system can show, can prove, can exemplify. That's our challenge. We'll be embarking on that in terms of a survey coming out to the school committee, coming out to the school council, coming out to not only everyone in LPS, but with the help of the town, hopefully reaching out to every single member of the town, whether you're connected to the school or not, LCTV. We're going to gather that and come up with a set of skills and competencies. The challenge will be to not only identify that, but in the vein of differentiation, creating numerous ways for students to get there. We have to allow students to have that success and to show what they know, what they've learned, what they can do, make learning more meaningful. It's probably going to include a lot more connections to the community. It's probably going to include things like capstone projects or defenses of an individual portfolio of everything I've learned through my 4 years, or an internship, or a specific hands-on project in an area that's passionate to the students, or something else that makes sense for students. So it allows us to stay current. We're being challenged to be very specific about what every single graduate can do and can take with him or her, but we're also being challenged to be very flexible and allow numerous ways in order for students to get there.
Well said. Thank you, Tom. We'll be happy to come back to the committee with a full report on the accreditation process if that's of interest. And then we'll hit the last few slides fairly quickly. In relation to curriculum alignment, we've heard from our principals the sort of soft spots, the places where we want to be very purposeful in terms of our attention to alignment. At the elementary level, these are some of the objectives relating to curriculum alignment. So, Dr.
I think
Nelson.
something that we heard from all 6 principals tonight was the importance of that vertical alignment. The middle school and high school have been embedded in that work for several years now. And you heard just how much Principal Landers was able to say that their work is similar. The expectations of the 8th and 9th grade teachers are similar and expected now. So we really want to dedicate some time this year for the 5th and 6th grade teachers to have that opportunity, to have that same dialogue, to understand work exemplars or samples, as we talked about earlier, expectations. Our current 6th graders are the first students who entered middle school with the new homework guiding principles. So we want to hear from them. We want to understand their perception of what did it feel like when you entered middle school this year. Were you prepared with the homework load, or were you a little overwhelmed? We also want to work a little bit more to prepare our 5th graders to have CARES and Peace Builders align with CASTLE framework, so that those words in the CARES framework, empathy looks, the word for in CASTLE, the wording, so that the students begin to understand what that is as they move forward. We also want to make sure that the student transition and placement continues to happen. So 2 years ago, we began to have any students that are receiving the Tier 2 intervention through RTI meet with the middle school intervention team, so that that plan that the student is working towards in elementary school continues with them. We've always done that for special education students on an IEP. We've done that for 504 students, but we weren't doing it for those Tier 2 students who were getting a general education intervention. And we feel that that's really important. We want to continue that work. At the elementary level, horizontal alignment is really important to us. We've spent a lot of work, our math specialist as well as our literacy coaches, developing common assessments that align with our standards-based report card rubrics, so that as teachers are assessing students, both formative and summative, they're able to assess that data with their rubrics and inform students, but also parents on their students' progress. We also, we talked a lot about the writing and the constructed responses. Going through the MCAS data this year, all 3 schools did very well in the selected responses, which used to be multiple choice. But what really brought our scores down was our writing, our constructed responses. So our literacy coaches already began delivering some high-quality professional development in what writing needs to be now. It has changed over the past few years in what is expected of students. So we're beginning that work and providing that development for teachers. And I think another common theme that we've heard throughout the evening is those common work samples and exemplars, and allowing teachers the opportunity to look at student examples and exemplars of their writing so that they begin to understand what a certain score should look like, and comparing writing from classroom to classroom, school to school. So we're Blueberry Center and Wolf Swamp teachers were all looking at grade 5 writing samples and understanding what that looks like across the district and making sure that it's aligned. So K through 5, understanding that expectation.
I was thinking about, some of you may recall the DESE's initiative relating to district-determined measures, and I think we, as educators, we all felt that that was a distraction to some really important work, and those have sort of, fortunately, sort of faded away as a component of the evaluation system. So we're sort of back at the work of developing real, genuine, common assessments that are tied to the expectations that are articulated in the standards-based report card and are tied to our units of study. And so it's really powerful work that, again, I think teachers enjoy sitting when they have the time, and time is precious, right? But I think they really enjoy finding those opportunities to crank out common assessments, and those common assessments have the effect of aligning our practices instructionally and making sure that we're lined up in units of study. So I really appreciate the improvement plan's attention to that as well. So thank you. Middle level curriculum alignment.
Yeah, so I will, so the elementary and middle, we work together on this goal, so this objective. So the language that Beth just sort of spoke to were a couple of my points, as well as just the dedicated time for PD for teachers in 5th and 6th grade to meet to discuss the vertical alignment of curriculum and practice. And she also touched on the fact that having our tier 2 people meet from elementary and middle has been really beneficial. So it really helps the kids. So at the end of the year when they're meeting like that, and then we all meet together as a team, it really sets those kids up for success and has them have a nice smooth transition into middle school. Continuing the work, you know, I know that Principal Landers just talked about was continuing that middle of the high school, having the 8th graders and 9th grade teachers still continuing that working. I know that we have set times we meet with them, but the discussion is happening throughout the whole year. I know we only meet a certain amount of times, but we definitely continue that conversation. And to engage in interdisciplinary planning to create common lessons across grades and across buildings. So continue to use team time, summer work, PD, to identify connections across subjects, content and skills, and create lessons across grades and disciplines. I know that some of you were present at that the invention convention that our 8th graders held last year, and it really ties into all subject areas, and there's rubrics for all of it, essential questions, which is pretty cool to just see the kids being able to take something and get it across all disciplines, so that's pretty cool.
The invention convention, I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to see it, but it was I just credit the staff for the amount of time they put into planning those projects, but doing it in a way that really required very specific tasks of the students. The expectations across the disciplines were really clear, and for students to have that opportunity to present their learning to members of the public, to parents or their peers, is very powerful. I think it's a great way to embed the learning. So a credit to the middle school for engaging in that invention convention.
Can we just have, sorry, one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I
Okay,
apologize.
sorry about that.
Yeah, I love how she just passed the mic. Just to recognize also that we've committed to once a month during department meetings, getting the collective whole together to discuss what's going on in both buildings. We recognize that's been a challenge over the years, and this year in particular, we're committed to ensuring staff from both buildings have an opportunity to meet in departments.
Thank you much. And then finally, at the high school, curriculum alignment work.
So as, in terms of the alignment with the middle schools, I think I've spoken to that, so I'll focus on work that we're doing within LHS. So as part of our NEASC audit, we have to have, and we have to prove that we have a curriculum map for every single class. And if there is a AP US History, for example, and a College Prep 1 US History and a College Prep 2 US History, you have to have 3 separate maps. You have to be able to prove that no matter who teaches that class, there's going to be consistency. Teachers retire, teachers teach new courses, things change, but and while things are not going to be a mirror image exactly from class to class, and we don't want that to be, it should be a commensurate experience. So that's part of what we do. Marty had mentioned common assessments. We have common assessments at both the mid-year point and the final exam. So mid-year, whether it's a mid-year exam or whether it's a mid-year experience or whether it's a final exam, there's commonality, making sure no matter what student had which teacher, and you're learning the skills maybe in a different way, or you could be reading even a different book in an English class, for instance, the skills that you are exemplifying at the end of that course are going to be commensurate. And I also wanted to mention the calibration at the department meetings. So there's calibration of correcting. So it's not just what is being taught, but how is it being corrected. And it's a big issue. It's a big issue with parents. It's a big issue with students. And as we speak, world language, the math department, and the English department are all engaging in another cycle of calibrating their correcting. You cross off a student's name, and you read an essay, and you go around a table, and you say, who would give what to this and why? So I would give this on a scale of 1 to 5, a 5, and you defend that. That's an amazing experience for teachers to go through, and those are the kinds of things that are happening. In math, not only is that happening, look at a math problem and say, why would I give 3.5 of 5 for that when my colleague is giving 4? Talk about that to try to calibrate and get more on the same page. That's important. That also happens with MCAS questions. Any MCAS questions that our students don't do well on, everyone in the department looks at, they analyze, they go back and they be purposeful about how to teach that. So in addition to the work that we continue to do, and it's really important with the middle schools, we are trying to create good opportunities, meaningful opportunities for students that are commensurate no matter what teacher you have.
All right. Thank you much. And so that concludes it. We're, as we mentioned, there's more detail in the plans that are in your packet, and we would welcome feedback, questions, comments from the committee. So thank you all. And I just say, as you collect your thoughts and questions, it's one of my favorite nights of the year because it's an opportunity to reflect the incredible work that's happening at the classroom level, the dedication, the very purposeful work that's happening, and how classrooms and schools are all pointed in the same direction. So as Donna said, our job often as administrators is to organize the work and get out of the way, because when we get out of the way, great things happen. And so, well said, Donna. So we welcome your questions, comments, and feedback.
We'll start with Karen.
I just want to thank you all. You can tell that you guys put a lot of thought into this and hard work and time, and it shows. And one thing that I think I heard every one of you say was purposeful. And you can tell looking at these plans that they're thoughtful and purposeful. So I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing everything that you're working on, what you're successful with. I really liked that aspect of hearing last year's plans and, you know, how you think you achieved those goals. And I really appreciate hearing what you're still struggling with and what is still a challenge in the schools, because from our perspective as school committee members, that's valuable to know how we can support you as a school committee. So I just want to say thank you and well done.
Bronwyn?
I also just wanted to say thank you to everyone who presented, and also all of the people who, all the school council members, you know, the administrators, and then the parents and teachers and students, community members. These take a lot of time to put together. Then going through each one, I received them in the email. You know, just having 2 children in the district, these aren't just, you know, it's good to know these aren't just these documents that are developed and then kind of, wow, these look great. Well, look what we're doing. These things are actually happening at the schools, which is, you know, very amazing. I've heard it from, you know, friends of kids at other schools as well, that this stuff is happening, that everyone's focusing on. I also really like the collaboration that seems to be taking place between the 3 elementary schools and the 2 middle schools, and then also leading up the vertical alignment all the way up to the high school. I think that all is extremely important, and I'm not sure how everybody finds all the time to fit all this stuff in, but we really appreciate it, as do the students. Thanks.
I think just to echo that, the relationships between the principals is really critical, and we spend a lot of time working hard and commiserating and sharing some laughs together, and when the bonds are strong between the principals, it creates great opportunities for teachers and kids. So.
Yeah, I will.
Ryan?
Thank you. As usual, I'm taking lots of notes because I like to steal from you and any other principals that I hear presenting for my own job. So thanks as usual. And kind of in that line, I want to know how, if you could tell me, any of you, what is your method for analyzing and sharing new data as you get it? So somebody mentioned vocal data. I'm working on that myself in my school. How are you taking that and sharing it with your staff so that you can use that as it fits into your plans? If anyone can talk about that.
So the vocal crosswalk that came out with that data has been helpful. I think it's just finding the time to go through it. So it's on a future school council agenda for us to start looking at that and analyzing that, and then bringing it to a faculty meeting once we kind of understand the data a little bit more clearly, and being able to disseminate that data. So I think at least at Wolf Swamp, that's what we're doing. Assistant Superintendent Bertrand provided us with that vocal crosswalk. How to break down what area of kind of castle each question is focusing on, so that we can really identify where we need to improve, but then also try to gain perspective from students and staff and parents through a climate survey to understand if that's what they also feel, what the perception also lines up with what our 5th grade students' perception was. So.
Did you want to know about other data too? Like
And how you're using any of that. I like the idea of using it with the school council and letting them analyze it. I think that's fantastic. It gets the message out of what the data is showing you guys.
So I can speak a little bit to the MCAS data.
Sure.
I know overall we had some unexpected results at Center School. We were a little bit disappointed with some of our results. So there was a data team. Some of them are here, standing around. And what they did is we actually wanted to focus more on the individual students. And they did a spreadsheet, and they looked at a lot of data points, not just the MCAS. You know, they looked at the MCAS, the BAS, Ames Web, lots of different data points to ask the question, is this child truly needing improvement or not meeting proficiency, or are there other data points that show us something different? So they really dug in to do some comparison and to make sure that there weren't any students that maybe didn't come up on RTI and didn't do well on MCAS. So there was a lot of analysis going on for that, because you can't just look at that one day,
Right.
one test and determine that a child is struggling, you know, especially when it's kids that are surprising, you know, for whatever. So we look at stamina, you know, then you start talking, what does this child need? Perhaps more stamina and test taking. You know, there's just a lot of different things that we talked about. I have to tell you, there were no patterns. You know, like they kind of stopped and gave it a break because they're saying we can't really pin down a pattern across the whole school. So again, it's just looking at individual students.
I think it's important that grade levels talk to each other, not just those that are tested for MCAS, but we also have our kindergarten teachers looking at the data that they're collecting and sharing that with first grade teachers. We did that at the end of last year so that we could say as a third grade, here's what we noticed, here's what we're sending you, here's what you need to work on, here are the strengths. So having those conversations so that everybody owns all of the data, not just the MCAS data, our vocal data, but like Donna and Beth already spoke to, all the data we bring, you know, to our RTI meetings, our Ames Web, our BAS, classroom, just, you know, anecdotal information. So making sure that we're all owning all the children together. And then having the speech and language path look and the OT and the PT, you know, everybody has a voice in that data analysis.
That's great. Thank you. Just one more part. We like taking turns, so I just want to get this out of the way. Did you say that sixth graders are being surveyed about their transition from fifth, and you're finding it? That's fantastic. I just want to say I thought that was a great idea.
It's like a week about a week out.
Yeah, the survey's
That's awesome.
developed and it's
Because the
specific.
trimester ends Friday, so it'd be good to get a trimester under our belt and then provide them with that survey.
That's great. Thank you.
Can you tell us, the survey is intended to flush out partly their experience with homework transitioning from fifth to sixth? Are there other components of the survey, or is it mostly the homework that we're thinking about?
Yeah, there's a
Right.
question on
Yeah,
stressors.
we added
Okay.
one on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two on that.
We're just trying to craft the question carefully,
Yeah.
you know, for.
Armand?
Again, as Bronwyn and Ryan said, I got to thank the parents, the teachers, the community members, the principals for your leadership on this. It's just great work. I think the thing that strikes me the most, actually I have one question, then I'll make my comment. You guys talked about being able to get people in the building together again this year as opposed to previous years. What changed that allowed you to do that?
You typically, I mean, we just decided to, because we were listening to the teachers and hearing them that we weren't really getting enough time. You know, we have PD days dedicated to specific PD, but there's not much time that we're dedicating to them just being able to collaborate together and go over just their grade level stuff or like vertical and horizontally. So we decided to use our department meetings to travel. So we lose 10 to 12 minutes of travel time to get to one school or the other, but we alternate. So at least gives them a solid 45 minutes to work together. It's not great, but it's something, and it has created them wanting more. So then we're already looking at the March PD to see if there's some time that we can use for that as well. So they definitely appreciate the time.
Awesome. I think the thing that strikes me the most about everything I've seen tonight from this and before this is that everybody's rowing in the same direction. I can see the vertical alignment, which doesn't happen even in the biggest organizations, and usually is the result of effective leadership. So kudos to everybody, and kudos to you, Marty O'Shea.
Is anyone else? Stephanie?
Thank you for this presentation. It was really in-depth, and I appreciate you taking the time to go through it. And I just wanted to highlight, I really appreciate the funding piece, because Title I has been a question that I brought up, and we're exploring a little more in finance sub. So I do appreciate that you specified where funds from Title I are being used. So thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
I want to mention, Beth had asked me earlier today, as we were prepping for this conversation, so, how can the school committee support, and that was part of Karen's comments as well, which I appreciated, and I think, as we do approach budget season, as we approach our planning for next year, hopefully, the requests that we make are reflective of the plans that you've heard. And, I heard things around just a sort of some side notes here, middle school, after-school activities, the professional development and data work that really drives a lot of this work, the staffing adjustments that we sometimes have to make in relation to our goals and plans. So again, I hope that as that FY20 budget takes shape, it's reflective of what you hear tonight. So.
I would agree. I thank you all for putting such thought. I concur with all of my colleagues that these types of presentations are so useful to us. And as Dr. O'Shea said earlier, I always am focused as a committee member on ways to support through the means that we can as a committee. And that's usually through policy and budget. So I love hearing about the PD, especially the embedded PD, because I feel that is a critical piece to do that professional sharing with colleagues and really build that like strong foundation in the schools. So I do look forward to ways that we can, support PD. I know I talked to Sue about bringing future like PD reports to the committee so we can find the appropriate ways to fund that. So I do agree with that. The other thing I wanted to mention that I thought was great is the transition from 5th to 6th grade in the survey, and that you're talking about the homework, because I feel like that's a real way where we can figure out for us through the homework policy that new kind of data coming in, that we've implemented the policy and now we need to see like how does that work in terms of like our kids that are leaving 5th grade and then coming to middle school, like what does that jump in homework expectations look like for them? So I look forward to that data and see what that survey presents us with. So thank you all for that. We do have a recommended motion on the plans.
I move on the recommendation of the individual school councils that the school committee approve the 2018-2019 school improvement plans for Blueberry Hill School, Center School, Wolf Swamp Road School, Glenbrook Middle School, Williams Middle School, and Long Meadow High School as presented.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? So we have a motion that's first and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Motion passes. And we have approved all of the improvement plans for the above-mentioned schools.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Now that everyone has resettled, we can move into our administrative reports tonight, and we'll lead off with Dr. O'Shea's superintendent report.
A few items for you that are provided in your packet. I wanted to highlight our administrative team's involvement with an organization called the District Management Group. We're really excited about our partnership with the District Management Group. It's a management organization that focuses on educational best practice in order to raise student outcomes. So on Friday, November 16th, I joined Assistant Superintendent Sue Bertrand and our administrative team at a leadership development meeting in Boston. It was a great time for the administrative team to collaborate. The title of the session, I think, reveals maybe some of our interests going forward. The title was Leading Change During Changing Times. Explore how entrepreneurial leadership can help you navigate headwinds, accelerate change, and build lasting improvement. So we attended some workshops with professionals from across the country. There were some folks as far away as Oregon, and it was a great time for us to share as an administrative team, but also to learn what was happening across the country in some really important areas, including meeting the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of kids. So, our our attention to our own professional development is as important as the professional development focus that we have for our staff. So appreciate that opportunity to attend the district management group session last week. Say Something anonymous reporting system. So since I've arrived in the district, been interested in making sure that we have a platform for students and community members to report on issues relating to student safety. And so you'll recall this Say Something anonymous reporting system. It's a tool offered by the Sandy Hook Promise organization. And I think we're at the front edge of a lot of districts that are looking at this. Boston is piloting it. There might be one other community in Massachusetts that is looking to adopt this anonymous reporting system. So we're excited to have this online platform that will allow staff, students, and community members a chance to report to us if they see a threat to student safety. So as part of the implementation plan, last Friday, all of our administrators, including our assistant principals, gathered to experience a training on that online reporting platform. And then in December and January, our hope is that students in grades 6 through 12 will attend most likely grade level assemblies to be introduced to the tool and really just generally oriented to the concept of behind see something, say something. And that's something that we have tried to impress upon our students in recent years. And I'm really excited about our adoption of that online reporting system and happy to report to the committee further on it if you're interested. Project 351, not sure if the committee's familiar with this or the community. So each year, the Commonwealth organizes 351 middle school students in something called Project 351. And Project 351 brings representatives from the 351 cities and towns across Massachusetts. And these middle school students get together in a year of service and in a year of leadership projects. And so this year, I'm excited to announce that Williams Middle School student Hannah Rosemont is our Project 351 representative. She is our ambassador to the program. And we'll be happy to report out further on the work that Hannah and her peers are doing across the state. Very exciting stuff. I also want to highlight some technology meetings that Technology Director Nick George and Tech Integration Specialist Sandy Boudreau have been involved with in recent weeks. They've made a commitment, an ambitious commitment, to meet with grade level teams, pre-K through 12, to identify opportunities for growth and improvement in terms of technology integration. So I've been joining them in these meetings as my schedule allows, but the hope is that we'll learn more about how technology can support the plans and the goals that you heard about tonight. I think that Longmeadow is known for its technology integration efforts. We've invested a lot in personnel and hardware and software, and the results are there. And now we want to think about how do we continue our growth in that important area. So. Thank you to Nick George and Sandy Boudreau for organizing those grade level meetings. I also want to mention that I have written a response to the Longmeadow News in response to a column that was written by Mr. Alex Grant, and I expect that response will be published in next week's Longmeadow News. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll move along with the assistant superintendent reports. I don't know who wants to start first, Sue.
After all these great reports, right? I'll make it brief, too. We have had about 6 weeks of a whirlwind of PD, which has been great for everybody. We have all been out and about at professional development. Marty spoke to some of it. A really cool conference called Undoing Racism was offered a couple of weeks ago. We had some staff go, and we had a gift of sending some from a parent in the community, and we also will have some folks attending next January, I think it is. Jean, right? January? Julie? Project Here was the grant that funded our life skills lessons at the middle school. Came out with a pretty cool curriculum game that you can check out and play. If it's working right on the Project Here games, it takes kids through different levels about good decision making, so it's kind of fun and engaging. I played for like 15 minutes. I'm like, I shut it off now, but it was pretty interesting. Under differentiation of curriculum and instructional practice, Rip Wormley came. He was our keynote speaker during our full PD day. He talked to middle and high school about differentiation and inclusion, and he spoke with elementary school about standards-based grading. We got good feedback from everybody. He was a good sport, running from grade level to grade level to grade level. And then in the evening, he actually spoke to parents about kind of fostering and encouraging learning just for the love of learning. You know, forget the rewards and have it be intrinsically exciting for kids. And most of our evening speakers speak for like 45, 50 minutes. He was going on to hour 3, and the audience still was with us. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, we got to get going. So he was here for a long time and engaged a lot of parents in the evening, and there was a lot of give and take, so that was a pretty neat thing to watch. An elementary team attended an Inclusive Practices Conference from the Department of Ed. Jean went to an English language learner workshop, Jean Fontaine. Our middle school math teachers took part in an in-depth focused math discovery for all students. That was Mike Flynn from Mount Holyoke College came in and did some work with us. I sat in on a little bit of that PD, and it was way over our head. I think we worked in base 5, right, instead of base 10.
5, yeah.
And I was like, wait, it was really amazing. Our leadership group had a great discussion on the topic of learning by doing. I think I might have attached, I don't know, did it get to your packets on that? So take a peek at that. Our leadership group is, again, that group that fosters folks in the district who aspire to become leaders of some kind. So we have a really good group of folks who are interested in those kinds of discussions. It's really great to have them with them. Under curriculum and alignment, the story of the year is social studies. Some elementary teachers went to the Mass Council Social Studies Conference, got some great ideas on alignment. They're working on scope and sequence. They've had a committee meeting already on aligning K-5. Where you can support them is with a budget for new social studies texts. They probably won't be asking at the end of this year, but there's a possibility that they can. You're hearing me? Get all this stuff together? Okay. In the 8th grade teachers, there's 2 that will be teaching civics next year. They've already started to infuse civics into the 8th grade. They're super excited about it. They will also need a new text for next year. They would actually probably like it sooner than next year, so they can start to use it prior to that, but they'll be doing some piloting. I think they have a favorite, but they still have 2 or 3 that they're considering. So another spot to look for some funding for would be fantastic. They also, one of these teachers is in our leadership group, and we gave him some experience with grant writing, so he wrote a grant along with the other teacher to help them with this work, and it provides them some stipends and some supply money. It's not a huge grant, but we'll see if they get it. It was a good experience for everybody. Let's see. I think one of my favorite PDs over the last few weeks was the Bill Daggett one. Dr. Nelson and I went to that, and our area districts are really nice about sharing their speakers with us. So if they have somebody coming who they think that we might be interested in, they invite us and folks so that we can send to join them, so, and we do the same for them. So we went over to hear Bill Daggett, and he was pretty fascinating, talking about the skills that students would need for the future, right? And something he spoke to was teaching the content is kind of falling by the wayside. Not that we don't need to do that anymore, but we really need to teach to the student, right? If you have a question on content, a student can get the answer to that question in about 30 seconds on internet. So he had a list of about 10 skills that he thought that future students needed. Complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, and coordinating with others. And we've had tons of talk around here just about those skills and kind of how are we, infusing those skills into our everyday practice, and how can we give kids connections to the outside so they can practice these things, not just in a school setting, but all over the place. So that is in the forefront of many of our conversations, and planning for the future. Might look for some budget support with that too. coming up. November 13th was our full-day PD. I don't know, we planned for 400 and some people, including custodians, and our office staff had some PD. Mr. Mazza did some PD for us, and just, like Marty says, we kind of provide this overarching plan and back away, and all these people do this amazing work during these PD days, including principals. They're all facilitators as well as they participate. So the principals, teachers, behavioral analysts, specialists, all run and facilitate PD for our staff. And I won't read this huge list, but and this is just a shortened version of it, but these are a sampling of the PD that was provided on the 13th. We had 2 groups of CPR folks, nurses and PE teachers. The high school folks did lifeguard training. They come to school in their bathing suits that day. It's pretty funny. We look forward to that. We looked at the high school Next Generation MCAS because this is their first experience with that for them, and they dove into that a little bit, more report card stuff. We had active threat training, which used to be the hostile intruder training at one point, active shooter training at one point. It has really evolved into active threat training, and it really feels like a really good training for me, and I'm hoping it makes our staff feel more comfortable in alternatives as opposed to, sheltering in place when this whole mess started. Just, it was, the advice was shelter in place, close your door, lock your door. That is no longer. So I think that made people feel a lot less anxiety surrounding those kinds of things. So I'll let it go at that.
I want to thank Sue for her work coordinating that November 13th Professional Development Day. I mean, as she mentioned, you're talking providing professional development for 400 staff. And the path of least resistance, the easiest thing to do is just tell the principals, go to it. And you sort of walk away from it. But what I think you see here in this list is that nearly all of the workshops and sessions were brought people together across schools and across grade levels. That requires an enormous amount of planning by Sue with the administrative team. So I want to thank you for that. And as Sue said, this is only a partial list of the activities that we were engaged in on the 13th. So thanks to everybody for that.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks,
Mr. Mazza.
So it's nice to see so much talk about the budget as we are in the preliminary stages of development of the FY20 budget. In your packet, I provided you the budget instructions and the calendar for FY20 that was sent to us earlier this month by the town manager. Just as a reminder, the preliminary projection for the town's budget for FY20 had a deficit of $650,000 as people are putting their wish list together. So we'll be having ongoing conversations with principals about needs and changes that we'll do our best to incorporate into FY20 budget. An update on the lighting project that we discussed earlier this month. As requested, the vendor was able to go out to Blueberry Hill and install the LED lights in 3 locations. The nurse's office, the principal's office, and a small classroom. I visited there yesterday and spoke with the principal. It appears that the occupants weren't even aware that the lights were changed in those spaces. I also got feedback from the other schools that had the projects done, and they too had no complaints from any of the teachers. They did say that the lights are bright than the old ones that they replaced, but that did not seem to be the case at Blueberry. I did also receive a letter in the mail from a resident kind of indicating that they suggested that we get the samples installed and also receive feedback from the stakeholders and cautioned us to move slowly. I know it'll be later on our agenda for consideration. I've also been asked to supervise a Long Meadow High School teacher who is interested in pursuing their administrative license for a school business manager. This requires them to do an internship with 300 hours that they'll be doing over the course of the next year or so. And then the boiler update at Wolf Swamp. We hope that the burner will be delivered on Thursday with installation scheduled for Friday. If all goes well, the boiler will be up and running by the beginning of next week, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. Food Service Advisory has our next meeting next Monday at 11:30. And the next district safety meeting is on December 7th at 9 a.m. That's it.
Thank you. I do not have an official chair report this evening, so we will move on to our student representative report. And welcome, Breggy.
The senior class play a couple of weeks ago was pretty successful. They had a revenue close to $10,000, which is really good considering that one of the nights got snowed out. Our council, the SAC, met with Sergeant Massafero about Glenn's new parking lot plan to reduce traffic, and he liked the idea and he said he'd get back to us. We did like a test to see if the car could make that U-turn, and it did, but Sergeant Massafero said that it still needed to be extended. As you all know, there was a walkout a couple of weeks ago in support of Dr. O'Shea, and it was a pretty big one. If it's okay, I'd like to use the remainder of my time to express what I think about the contract issue.
Sure.
So when I was looking over the YouTube video, what stood out to me was the amount of contradictions. And it was said that Dr. O'Shea is content with the status quo of the school, but he also said a bunch of things that showed that he isn't content with the status quo, including his SEL initiatives and his safety initiatives. It was said that Dr. O'Shea isn't committed to professional development or networking, but he listed off all the meetings and conferences he's been to that show that he is committed to both those things. It said that school committee goals don't match the superintendent's goals, and I've been to these meetings for like probably more than a year now, and like most of this his presentations, I think it was emphasized that he really wants the school committee goals and his goals to line up. It was also said that Dr. O'Shea allows an environment where questions asked by the school committee don't get viewed as intrusions. And there's one specific example of that where a school committee that was mentioned where a school committee member asked questions respectfully and was kind of shut down. But I've seen in meetings where there's been a very respectful dialogue between administration and school committee, like we just saw here, where questions were asked and both parties benefited greatly. And all these contradictions showed me that there's like a lot of problems with communication between the school committee and the superintendent. But even if communication between the superintendent and school committee is one of Dr. O'Shea's weaknesses, I don't think that's enough to justify not extending his contract. And I think what really should be the priority is that the superintendent shows sincere dedication to students and implements policies that he thinks will benefit them, and I think that's what he's done. So that's all led me to believe that I think the best course of action for both parties is the one-year compromise plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Breggy. We can move on to our subcommittee reports for tonight, and we're going to, I know we just got a little bit of information on the energy efficient lighting, but I'll turn it back over to you, Tom, for the utility update.
Sure. So maybe 3 weeks ago, we discussed a proposal to have the lighting at the elementary and middle schools swapped out to LED. Just as a summary, the total project was about $350,000 with a subsidy from the utility of about $243,000, which left a net project investment of about $107,000. And the plan or the proposal would be to fund that $107,000 over the course of 2 years, paid back on the monthly utility bills, with the expectation, according to the analysis that was provided in regards to the savings, would be about a cash flow break even, or about $5 based on the runtime that is used for schools in terms of classrooms and the various spaces throughout all of the buildings. So I know the discussion was making sure that we don't move forward without it having a detrimental effect on the occupants, and so it was suggested that we have some samples put in. As I indicated in my report, that has been done. It does not appear to be any negative feedback from the occupants of those spaces. So it's, again, here for you tonight. I would say tonight's probably the last opportunity we would have in order to approve the proposals to have them, the projects completed by January 31st, which is the deadline for project completion for the incentive funding from the utility.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions? Okay, Stephanie?
You were comfortable with the lighting?
Yeah, I walked in and, I mean, it was hard for me to notice a difference, and I did mention that to the contractor. They said they could see the difference when they were swapping out the bulbs. When I spoke to the nurse at Blueberry, she had indicated she didn't know they were done until the custodian told her that the previous week they had actually came in and switched out her bulbs. So, I mean, to me, they looked exactly the same. Amy's here also. I don't know if you want to put her on the spot, but she and I spoke about it, and she too indicated she didn't really notice a difference in her space. So.
To be fair, I don't spend a lot of time in my office. I like to be out with the people. So.
But they seem soft. It wasn't that hard LED bluish tint lighting that you would expect from the LED lights that were original.
Anyone else? I know we talked about this at length in Finance Sub, and I appreciate the due diligence on this, Tom, and getting the samples in. And if you could just remind me, I think when we spoke with the representatives, we have everything ready to go on the purchase order, just depending on approval and my signing the contract, then we can potentially get the work done.
Yeah, they'd indicated that
Over Christmas.
Upon approval tonight, they would move forward with the ordering of the materials. They'd hope to receive them in time to do a bulk of the work during Christmas break, but if not, it would be completed after school hours from 3 to 11.
Thank you. Armand?
Yeah, Tom, just since we're going to vote tonight, for the public record, what's the calculated savings per year if we do this?
So the annual savings would be approximately about $4,500 a month. That would be after the 2-year payback period of the investment cost of $107,000.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, we do have a recommended motion on the agenda.
I move that the school committee approve the lighting retrofit contracts as outlined in the summary sheet for the elementary and middle schools and authorize the chair to sign the contract.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we can call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, motion passes for the lighting retrofit, and I will get in touch with you about signing
Great.
the contract.
I'll let them know that it's been approved.
Okay. Sounds good. We can move on to our facility use requests, which we have more than usual this evening.
So I'm happy to speak to all of them. I believe there's 7 or 8 different requests that are listed on the agenda. Finance Sub did review these over the last 2 meetings. A number of them are repeat dance recitals that occur in the spring. The wrestling tournament that is scheduled for December 16th is new. I believe it is the day after the early bird wrestling tournament takes place. So the back gym and I believe the main gym will be set up for that use. But not quite sure, Beth, how you would like to proceed, if you want me to read them all off, or I know they'll be read again in the motion, so.
I think we can read them in the motion, and everyone had ample time to review in their packet and in the drive, so. Armand?
Just one question on the wrestling one, December 16th. The last time that happened, there was a swim tournament that happened the same day and basketball games going on in the gym the same day. Is that avoided this year?
I can check. I don't know if it's this one, because this entity has not rented with us before, so
Okay.
maybe it's the early bird
Maybe
one
it's the
you're
other-
talking
okay.
about,
All right,
which would
thanks,
be the
Tom.
day before, so I will check.
Any other questions? So we do have a recommended motion, and I would ask that whoever reads the recommended motion, that we list the 10 or so.
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Committee that the school committee approve the following facility use request: Long Meadow Parks and Recreation use of LHS Auditorium on May 1st, 2019. Long Meadow Parks and Recreation use of LHS Auditorium sound booth, chorus room, and band room on May 10th, 2019. Long Meadow Parks and Recreation use of LHS Auditorium sound booth, chorus room, and band room on May 11th, 2019. Dance Inc. use of LHS Auditorium in a classroom on May 28th and 29th, 2019. The Dance Company LLC use of LHS Auditorium and music room on June 7th and 8th, 2019. Academy of Artistic Performance use of LHS Auditorium and multipurpose room on June 11th and 15th, 2019. Youthful Expressions use of LHS Auditorium and a classroom on June 21st and 2nd, 2019. The National MS Society use of Long Meadow High School cafeteria on May 5th, 2019. USA MA Wrestling use of LHS Gymnasium and cafeteria on December 16th, 2018.
Oh, sorry.
Karen?
Sorry, one second, sorry,
Oh.
I just have a question.
Okay.
The youthful expressions, the dates requested, say 2018 instead of 2019, do we need to make an addendum for that? On the actual facility use request form, it says.
That would be wrong then, because June is already gone.
Right,
Yeah, the form was wrong, it's for this coming June's.
So can we
Dates.
just, is that?
It's
I'm
correct in the
asking you to be
motion.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's correct in the motion.
Okay.
But good to clarify. Ryan, did you second?
Yep.
Okay, so we have the motion first and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we can call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, so the motion passes on the facility use requests. And then the enrichment.
Sure. The final
Report.
item, Finance Sub on November 6th received a presentation from Ms. Stacy Smith, who is coordinating all of our enrichment programs. So she provided an update of the programs over last school year and summer to the subcommittee, and they are included in tonight's packet. There are multiple documents, lengthy reports, survey results, and so on for both the after-school enrichment and the summer program. And I would do my best to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Tom. We can move into our policy subcommittee report.
Okay, so we have two policies that have been posted for 30 days. We've got no input. So we have two motions to approve them. Can I read them or not?
Sure.
Okay. I move on the recommendation of the policy subcommittee that the school committee approve policy KE, which is public complaints, as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we can call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? None, the motion passes.
And the second one, I move on the recommendation of the policy subcommittee that the school committee approve policy KEB, public complaints about school personnel, as presented.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion?
Yeah, just
Armand?
One question about how does this fall outside, I guess, of collective bargaining? If it's about school personnel, wouldn't we need union input on that policy?
Does anyone from the policy sub want to address that when it was?
As you read it, Armin, would you conclude that the complaints, if there's complaints about school personnel, would still be handled in the normal manner? I don't think it was the intention of this policy to change that. And that if a complaint came in, if it was anonymous, it would be disregarded, except in the instances that are described there.
I just don't know if the bargaining units would agree with that. That's the basis of my question.
Okay.
Well, I believe that's all we updated, right? Was adding the exceptions to the anonymous complaint.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we added, was that, in red.
Right. And I guess
So
we
this-
would still, Stephen, if a complaint came in anonymously and it matched one of the criteria there, we would still have to honor our commitments to teachers via the collective bargaining agreements. So
I get, okay.
if.
Sorry, I don't want to be out of
No.
order.
Armand?
But would we want a policy that would be in contradiction to the collective bargaining procedures?
Would this, so just for clarity, would you feel like that this would be in conflict with any agreement that we have?
Well, we're
or-
saying except in the following instances, and we haven't had, to the best of my knowledge, this hasn't been discussed with the bargaining units.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's, the vote's fine. I mean, I'm
Right.
just asking a question.
Yeah. What I like about this is that it does tell our bargaining units, it tells the community that we will generally disregard anonymous complaints unless they meet one of the criteria there. And so by statute, we have to accept bullying complaints anonymously. And then, certainly if it's an imminent health or safety matter, we would want to act on that in fairness to the complainant, but also in fairness to the employee. And then if we were to be involved with some anonymous surveying, we wouldn't design a survey that sought to gather information on specific personnel, I'd say. But, certainly we could, it's been available for public comment, but certainly we could be more purposeful in bringing it back to the LEA to see if it works for them, so.
Did anyone else have any?
Before you vote on it, yeah. I think it's a great question, just to make sure that everybody's clear on the intent of the policy.
Stephanie?
So just to be clear, your question is about anonymous complaints somehow conflicting with collective bargaining when the safety. So I'm just wondering at what point, so if it got to a personnel issue where it went to that level, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm happy to bring it back, but I'm just not clear about where the collective bargaining would come into play in a policy like this.
We're talking about rights that an employee has under their contract. And we are talking about, at least in my opinion, potentially changing some of those rights in this policy, which would be in contradiction to what we've bargained in good faith together. So, I mean, you're free to have your own opinion on it. I'm just asking the question of if we are changing a policy to create exceptions, should we engage with our partnerships in the LEA to find out if they are in agreement with these changes? And I think somebody just astutely pointed out that we haven't had any comments in the last 30 days. So, I think that's the one. But I putting the question out there, and everybody's up to their own opinion on whether they feel it and can vote the way they think.
Karen?
Marty, how do we typically handle when we're changing a policy? Do we typically bring it directly to the LEA, or do we allow them to comment during the 30-day period?
Yeah, I think you typically rely on the 30-day comment period, but in this instance, if we wanted to pause and have us check back with the LEA in a sort of abundance of caution, I think that I'd certainly be okay with that and welcome that opportunity to make sure that the policy is clear to everybody.
So what I'm hearing is somewhat of consensus to table the motion, and we can just go ahead and bring it back to policy and just get some further input before we bring it again to full committee.
Does it?
If anyone, I don't hear any objections to that.
Do we need it to go back to policy, or do we want to just sort of extend the public comment period so as to allow for discussion with the LEA? Would that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as that's, the opportunity is afforded. I think that's fine. So we'll table.
Yep.
We'll table that motion.
Yep.
We have nothing else from policy,
Oh,
so.
Can I,
Oh.
can I just ask that
Yeah.
that was tabling, KEB, but you were okay with E? KE?
I don't know why we're having this debate. I've made my thoughts pretty clear. I had
Well-
no problem with KE because it didn't say about school personnel.
It does though, in red, so that's why I'm wondering if we're gonna bring it back to the LEA, do we want to, I mean, we already voted on it, but it does, the complaints
But it-
about school personnel.
Public complaints about, like, I took it as specific complaints about a personnel versus anonymous. But yeah, I mean, if you want to table, I mean, we already voted on the other one. I don't know how you want to handle it, Beth.
I believe we'll let the first recommended motion stand, and then we will solicit further input and extend the comment period as far as KEB goes. So we can move on to new business.
I'm sorry, I'll just finish up.
I'm so sorry, you have that last paragraph of
That's all right. And if we
KEE.
got more additional comments, then Marty, we can see if we need to come back into policy and bring the Kathy or appropriate people in to discuss that. Okay, we also consider policy KEE, and we are recommending removal from the policy manual. MASC was consulted, and it was confirmed that the policy is obsolete. It's not relevant anymore, so I'm recommending removal of that. And tonight, we are presenting policy BEDG, which is minutes with changes to the school committee for a first reading. It will be posted on the district website in accordance with policy BGB, policy adoption to solicit public input.
So everyone has a copy of BEDG that was at the table tonight.
Those that picked up their package, got them at their table, and everybody else had it like that.
And that is out for first reading.
It will be.
I'll just note on that KEE, which is public complaints, the policy describes bringing public complaints to the Bureau of Equal Educational Opportunity of the Department of Development. So that particular bureau doesn't exist. There are other avenues that members of the public can use to pursue complaints at the Department of Education level. And right now, there's not an MASC policy that would substitute for this. So our thought was to make sure that our handbooks articulate an avenue that parents could follow if they needed to bring a complaint to the Department of Education. So in many instances, that's already clear, but I think we can review our handbooks to make sure that parents understand what their options are.
Diane?
Procedural. So am I posting that to the website that you plan on removing that, or are you just gonna vote to remove it? Like what do you wanna do with that? Is it gonna be 30 days posted as being eliminated?
I'd recommend.
I think we do post it.
Do you
Yeah.
wanna just vote?
I'd recommend the 30-day
Okay.
comment period.
Yeah, I think to be consistent with what we normally do as far as public comment and accepting and removing policy. So thank you, Diane, for that. Thank you for the clarification on why it's obsolete and what that policy actually entails. Anything else, Melanie?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So we'll move on to new business, and we have some overnight field trip requests. Long Meadow High School is requesting 2 overnight field trips during this meeting. So we do have some recommended motions on the overnight field trips in your packet.
So there's, one is an overnight field trip request for the Long Meadow High School accidentals to travel to Leyden, Massachusetts for a retreat on Friday, December 7th. With that field trip, they spend 12 hours of intensive rehearsal and preparation for upcoming performances. The weekend would end with a caroling in Northampton as a fundraiser for the Northampton Cot Shelter. So there's a recommended motion for the approval of that overnight field trip for the accidentals.
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the Long Meadow School Committee approve the overnight field trip for the students from Long Meadow High School Accidentals to travel to Leyden, Mass. For a retreat on Friday, December 7th, 2018 through Sunday, December 9th, 2018.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor on the recommended motion? Any opposed or abstaining? So that motion passes. We have a second motion on the second overnight trip.
So, overnight foreign trips require preliminary, is this the preliminary approval, Diane, or is this the final approval? This is the final approval. So in this instance, this would be the final approval for the school committee to approve a lyrics performance tour to Denmark and Sweden. With this tour, students in lyrics would spend the year exploring Swedish language and choral repertoire. They would perform and sightsee in Copenhagen, Karlskrona, Uppsala, and Stockholm, and ultimately participate in a musical exchange with a youth choir and a high school choir. So this trip had your initial endorsement as a preliminary approval. It has my recommendation for you to approve it in its final form when they travel to Denmark and Sweden on from April 11th to the 19th, 2019.
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Long Meadow High School lyrics to travel to Denmark and Sweden on Thursday, April 11th, 2019 through Friday, April 19th, 2019.
Second.
Bronwyn said it.
Was it Bronwyn first?
No, I don't, it doesn't.
Just want to clarify it for the minutes. Bronwyn, it's fine. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we can call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, the motion passes for the overnight field trip. And that's exciting for the lyrics group. I think they do a phenomenal job. Next up, we have the 2019-2020 school calendar. Speak to the calendar
Sure,
committee.
yeah. So we're anxious to put the 2019-2020 school calendar in the hands of our staff and our families. And so this doesn't require any action tonight. It is simply informational. This calendar was voted to approve by the school committee at May 2018 meeting. And I just wanted to be sure that you didn't have any final comments or questions that would require the calendar committee to reconvene. So just for everyone at home watching, for the committees, a refresher for the committee, we have by contract, we have a calendar committee. 9 teacher representatives, 9 administrative representatives get together to develop a calendar that includes start date, end date, the December vacation, the placement of professional development days, and so this calendar does that and more. Some years, the calendar decisions are made for us because there's sort of natural breaks that, in terms of setting that December vacation or setting the first day or last day of school. I think in 1920, this is one of those years. It would have the first day of school on the 29th of August with the projected last day of school, barring snow days, on June 16th, 2020. So if you had any comments or questions that you'd like to pass along either now or via email, I'm happy to take a shot at those and then determine whether or not we got to pull that calendar committee back together.
I think Karen has one.
Just a quick feedback that I had heard, and I know we talked about this when we approved the calendar last time. That week in November, I'm just curious if the calendar committee got any feedback on that, that week where there's the 2 days off for the elementaries and then 2 half days all in the same week.
Right.
I don't know if they got any comments or feedback or heard anything.
Maybe I'd hate to put the principals on the spot if you've heard anything from community members on that. I haven't heard any feedback directly. I will say we didn't, at least I didn't purposely go out and collect any feedback on that, but any feedback on how that worked out for us?
I didn't hear any feedback from
Okay.
parents. I think it makes for a jumbled week, but that's kind of November, with Thanksgiving and Veterans Day and
parent-teacher conference. That's a 45-day mark of our marking period, so it's a natural point for conferences to occur.
And how did you guys feel that worked out for you?
Well, I mean, it was tough because we were supposed to have a half day, but then it turned into a 2-hour day.
right,
So
right,
everything
right.
about that week, and then Thanksgiving being the following week, was difficult in terms of just getting into a routine and going. But I'm not sure. I didn't hear anything from parents. I'm sure it was difficult for childcare. But I'm not sure how else. We're always going to have those 2 half days. Just so happened that it happened that week. I actually had a lot of families out of town that week.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think if I remember the conversation from the calendar committee, the thought was to try to create a couple of cohesive full weeks in November. So you have the week of November 4 to the 8th, and then the 18th to the 22nd. So in a challenging month, you've still got 2 weeks that are 5-day weeks that provide for some continuity. So sort of kind of pick your poison there, I guess, you know. And
Armand?
Yeah, Karen, I heard a lot of feedback from parents who that week was just not a good week for daycare and after-school activities, and the snow day screwed everything up on the one day where we switched the whole day. I mean, I'll send you stuff offline, Marty, but and since there's so many people that are out of town the following Monday and Tuesday for vacations, would that be a better day for the parent-teacher conferences? I don't know, but
we can.
the 4 days in 1 week was a bit much. That's the feedback. I got it from a lot of parents on the playground. That week was just disjointed, like I think somebody said.
I received that feedback. I think it was a combination on one end, you know, it was the parents that did take advantage and go away, and then the others, it was very difficult for childcare, you know, for working families.
And then we changed the schedule with the snow day change.
I think the feedback is crucial for the calendar committee, so if there's anything that you want to submit via email, and we can go ahead and get that all off to the calendar committee, I think
So I think-
anything that they hear is productive for them.
Yeah, the determination we'll have to make then is whether we want to reconvene that calendar committee to take another look at the placement of those half-days. I think that's the decision we'll have to make, so if you feel, I guess, I'll solicit some feedback from the principals. If the committee has any feedback on the placement of those 2 half-days, let us know.
Sounds good. We do not have an executive session planned for this meeting. Do I have a recommended motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming and attending, and everybody have a great rest of the week.